Maya thought it was just another snowstorm shift, until 15 powerful strangers filled her diner, and one of them recognized something about her past she never knew herself. That night, trapped by the storm, her life would unravel in ways no one could predict. The first snowstorm of December wasn't supposed to hit so hard. That's what the radio had said as dusk fell over Oak Ridge, a faded little town somewhere north of Albany. By 7 p.m., wind slammed against battered storefronts and turned Main Street into a whiteout. Headlights blurred to smudges, and the world wrapped in silence, except for the hollow wail of sirens in the distance. On the corner sat the Lantern, a diner shaped like an old railroad car, all chrome edges and neons on flicker. It was the kind of place that time forgot. Cracked red booths, a jukebox stuck on 90s country, photos of town fairs gone yellow on the walls. Inside, the heater rattled and the lights buzzed, stubborn against the storm. It was late enough that only 2 tables were left, both regulars, old men in thick jackets, nursing the same mugs of black coffee they'd ordered an hour ago. Maya Torres wiped her hands on her apron, the skin on her knuckles raw from constant washing, and watched the clock tick towards closing. 26, single, dark hair pulled into a ponytail that was starting to fray. She'd worked at the Lantern for 4 years, long enough to know which pipes froze first, which tables tilted, and which customers tipped in quarters instead of bills. Most of her paycheck went to rent and her mom's medication. What was left, she kept for heat and groceries. Outside, wind gusted so hard the windows rattled. Maya glanced up, heart sinking, when a figure staggered through the glass door. Not one of the usuals. Tall, wrapped in a tailored black coat so out of place it might as well have been a tuxedo, snow clinging to the fabric in thick patches. His shoes, Italian leather, Maya guessed, were ruined, soaked through, and his hair was slicked back in a style you didn't see around Oak Ridge. He looked around as if expecting someone to take his coat and announce his arrival. Instead, he just stood there, shivering, and blinked at the empty counter. Before Maya could speak, the door slammed again, this time letting in a rush of cold air and 2 more men in expensive suits, then another and another. Within minutes, a crowd of strangers filled the front half of the diner, dragging in the storm with them, shaking snow from their collars and glancing at their phones with growing panic. Maya's manager, Tom, peered out from the kitchen, spatula in hand, eyebrows climbing. She counted them as they slumped into booths and chairs, 15 in all, not a single familiar face among them. Not truckers or salesmen or even lost college kids. These were men who belonged in boardrooms and luxury hotels, not a run-down diner with a leaking roof. No one spoke for a moment, as if they all shared the same silent calculation. What the hell now? Maya caught snatches of conversation, mentions of private planes, lost cell service, routes closed, drivers missing. One man, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, checked his watch as if time could be bullied into slowing down. Another stared at the menu like it was written in code. Tom hovered near the pass, muttering about big city money and insurance. Maya just filled the coffee pot and started making the rounds, muscle memory taking over. She offered refills, extra napkins, whatever was left in the kitchen. Most of the men didn't meet her eyes. A few muttered thanks. It wasn't until she brought out an extra pot of chili that the tension eased, if only slightly. Through the frosted windows, the storm raged on, cutting off the outside world. The men checked their phones again, then each other. The realization dawning that money meant nothing if you were trapped by weather and distance. In the corner, the oldest regular sipped his coffee and shook his head. Maya caught the glance, An unspoken warning. These people don't belong here, and they'll never remember your name. She ignored him. Instead, she gathered extra blankets from the back, fetched more bread, and did what she always did when things got tough. She kept moving. Her own apartment was colder than the diner anyway, and with the storm growing worse, she knew she'd be sleeping here tonight, whether she liked it or not. When Tom suggested locking up, Maya shook her head. "No one's going anywhere in this," she said, voice flat but steady. So they hunkered down. 15 billionaires, 2 regulars, and Maya, the waitress who couldn't afford to miss a shift. The world outside vanished in white. No one in that diner knew it yet. But before morning, everything in Maya's life, and theirs, would be turned upside down. As midnight crept closer, the diner felt smaller, the air thick with discomfort and trapped heat. The regulars left, bundled up and bracing for the walk home, leaving Maya alone with the men who didn't fit. Their voices, usually sharp and certain, grew low and uncertain as the storm hammered the walls like some ancient test. The snow outside had swallowed Main Street, erasing any hope of rescue. Tom pulled down the blinds and switched off the neon sign. "No point inviting trouble," he muttered, though Maya guessed he was thinking more about headlines than burglars. In the kitchen, he scraped together leftovers: chili, half a meatloaf, a few slices of pie gone soft from the fridge. Maya served what she could, passing plates across the counter, watching the men's defenses drop with every bite. They tried to keep their distance at first. One made a call, pacing back and forth until the line died with a harsh beep. Another scrolled through texts that wouldn't send, eyes narrowing with each failed attempt. Their coats, once symbols of status, now looked out of place, heavy and damp on the backs of cheap chairs. Maya caught bits of argument, accusations of poor planning. Frustrated orders barked at assistants who couldn't help them now. She worked in silence, moving from table to table, refilling coffee cups, collecting empty plates, pretending not to hear their mounting panic. It was a skill she'd learned early, how to blend into the background, how to keep working even when the world was falling apart. But tonight, there was no blending in. She was the only thing holding the chaos together. A tall man with striking gray eyes, Mason, his business card had said, finally spoke to her directly. "You always get storms like this up here?" he asked, voice rough around the edges now, the Wall Street polish fading. Maya shrugged, adjusting her ponytail. "Comes with the zip code." She didn't add that this was the worst one she'd seen since she was a kid. Let them think she wasn't rattled. Across the room, a younger exec watched her, trying to place her accent, her attitude, maybe even her story. He asked for a blanket, then a second for his colleague. She gave them what she had, then found herself standing awkwardly in the center of the room as the group eyed her, expectations shifting from irritation to something closer to need. "You got any more of that coffee?" another man asked, softer now. "Always," Maya replied, pouring him a cup. It was a small act, but something shifted. The men relaxed. Just enough to start talking to each other like equals, not rivals. Jokes surfaced, dry and desperate, about their lost fortunes, missed meetings, the absurdity of billionaires stranded in a no-name diner. Maya let herself smile, if only for a second. Tom started setting up chairs to block the door, as if that would keep the storm out. Maya checked her phone. No service. One bar flickering and fading. Her mom's last text sat unsent. A half-written "I'll call you in the morning, love you," hanging between worlds. When the wind howled loud enough to shake the ceiling tiles, even the toughest men flinched. For a while, no one spoke at all. Maya washed dishes by hand, listening to the scrape of forks on plates, the creak of snow-laden walls. She wondered if, in the morning, the world would look different, or if this was just another bad night in a long string of them. Somewhere after 2 a.m., Mason asked, almost sheepish, if there was somewhere they could sleep. Maya led them to the back booths and storage room, collecting spare aprons and a stack of threadbare towels to use as pillows. Not the Ritz, but better than the storm. The men settled in, grateful but awkward, unused to relying on kindness from strangers. As she finally sat at the counter, rubbing her tired feet, Maya realized she'd become the center of their small, accidental universe. Billionaires and a broke waitress, all held hostage by snow. She couldn't help but wonder, when the storm cleared, would any of them remember her name at all? Morning arrived in slow motion. Outside, the world was unrecognizable, blanketed by drifts taller than car hoods. The silence of snow broken only by distant emergency sirens and the occasional groan of trees giving in to the weight. The street looked abandoned, every parked car lost beneath white mounds. Even the lantern itself seemed smaller, like a life raft in an endless sea. Inside, a strange sort of truce had settled. The billionaires woke stiff and rumpled, hair flattened, ties missing, faces puffy from a night spent on diner benches and linoleum. Tom, who'd tried to nap in his office chair, brewed the first pot of coffee just after dawn, grumbling about his back. Maya was already up, wiping down tables that didn't need it, mind racing with lists. Restock sugar, count the cash register, check the pipes for freezing. She kept her eyes down, trying to ignore the fact that half the most powerful men in America now knew where she stored the extra napkins. One of them, the silver-haired executive with the expensive watch, tried to offer her $100 bill for inconvenience. She just smiled, sliding it back toward him. "It's on the house, nobody's here by choice." It was the first time she saw a flicker of real humility cross his face. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe the night had stripped something away. Mason, always the sharpest in the room, started to rally the group. They used their phones as flashlights, searching for news, calculating how long they'd be stuck. The answer was grim. Roads closed, rescue crews overwhelmed, the town cut off until the main highway could be cleared. The storm wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a wall. By late morning, the food was almost gone. Maya rationed what was left. Scrambled eggs, 2 slices of ham, the last pieces of Tom's pie, broken into careful slivers. She served each plate like it was a feast, joking that billionaires could use a lesson in portion control. Laughter came, brittle at first, then easier, like relief after holding your breath too long. With little else to do, people started talking. Stories of lost flights, missed board meetings, kids waiting at home. One confessed he hadn't spent a night without room service in years. Another admitted he didn't know how to use a washing machine. Tom snorted, and for the first time Maya saw him smile at their guests. Just a crack, but it was something. Still, the divide lingered, impossible to ignore. Every so often, one of the men would slip away, talking in low voices about deals and damage control. Maya heard snatches about investments, PR nightmares, insurance clauses. She couldn't help but notice how easily they slipped back into power, even here. Old habits died hard. Sometime near noon, Mason wandered into the kitchen while Maya washed mugs by hand. He leaned against the counter, looking tired but curious. "You always work this hard?" Maya didn't look up. pays the bills. He let the silence stretch before saying, most people would have kicked us out. Wouldn't have mattered. Nowhere else to go. She scrubbed at a stubborn stain, knuckles white. Mason studied her, something shifting behind his eyes. You're good at this. Running things, keeping people calm. She shrugged. You do what you have to. He nodded, and for a second, the room felt warmer, less like a cage. I'll remember that. When Maya returned to the dining room, she found the men clustered around the windows, staring at something outside. She followed their gaze and felt her heart stumble. The snow was starting to ease just a little, and in that uncertain light, dozens of shapes were moving up Main Street. People from town, neighbors with shovels and sleds, pushing through the drifts, coming to see if the diner needed help. For the first time since the night began, Maya let herself believe the world might actually come back. But she couldn't shake the feeling that when the doors opened, everything would change again, inside and out. The townspeople arrived in waves, boots stamping, cheeks pink with cold, bundled in parkas and mismatched scarves. Some carried thermoses, others lugged shovels over their shoulders, ready to tug out whoever needed it. They peered through the diner's steamed-up windows, their curiosity instantly morphing into disbelief as they saw who was inside. Whispers spread fast, a parade of strangers in expensive clothes, the kind of men you saw on magazine covers, not Main Street during a blizzard. Tom unlocked the door, and the first group filed in, brushing snow from their coats, greeting Maya with familiar nods. Someone handed her a loaf of homemade bread. Another pressed a bag of apples into Tom's hands. The air filled with the scent of cinnamon and wood smoke, and for a few minutes, the place felt almost festive, like a snow day when you were a kid. But under the surface, the strangeness remained. The billionaires shrank into themselves, suddenly self-conscious in a room full of people who recognized each other by first name. No one asked them for autographs. No one seemed impressed. Instead, the town's mechanic offered Mason a mug of cocoa, clapped him on the shoulder, and said, "Next time, rent a truck instead of those fancy sedans." The room erupted in laughter, easing a tension nobody wanted to name. Maya watched as the two worlds collided, curious to see who would bridge the gap. To her surprise, it was one of the older men, salt and pepper beard, who asked a local farmer about his greenhouse. Within minutes, others joined in, talking weather, lost pets, power outages, topics that mattered here, where everyone's luck could change overnight. Still, not everyone blended so easily. A sharp-suited banker tried to pay for breakfast with a platinum card. Maya shook her head, gently sliding the card back. "Cash only," she said, smiling just enough to make her point. "Or IOU. This is Oak Ridge, not Manhattan." The man looked confused, then embarrassed, and finally laughed, shaking his head. She wondered if he'd ever been refused anything in his life. With the diner packed, Maya moved from table to table, her tiredness forgotten. She checked on the old men, refilled cocoa, passed out the last slices of pie. For a moment, it felt like nothing could touch her, that she was at the heart of something bigger than herself, bigger than the storm. Tom caught her eye from the kitchen, nodding in approval. Outside, people started clearing the parking lot, digging out cars one by one, working together without needing to be asked. Maya noticed Mason and two other executives join in, awkward at first, then committed, shoulders hunched, hands raw. It was clumsy but honest work. She saw them share a look she recognized, a flicker of respect for the people who could survive here, storm after storm. Later, while Maya handed out more coffee, she heard someone mention her name. "That's Maya Torres, right? Keeps the diner running even when Tom's arthritis acts up." Another voice added, "Took care of my mom after her fall last winter." Maya's ears burned, but she kept moving, pretending not to hear. Compliments always felt heavier than complaints. As the sun finally forced its way through the clouds, emergency crews announced that the main road would be cleared by nightfall. The men in suits traded relieved glances, already pulling out their phones, making plans, calculating lost time. The spell was breaking. Maya felt it like a physical shift in the air, the world resetting itself, everyone about to slip back into their old roles. But for a few more hours, they were all stuck together, pretending that breakfast in a crowded diner could mean something. Maya wondered, as she cleared a table, if anyone else felt the ache of endings, or if that was just the waitress in her, always cleaning up as everyone else moved on. By afternoon, the snowplows crawled their way up Main Street, bright lights flashing, engines roaring over the hush that had settled since dawn. Word traveled faster than any emergency crew. By the time the roads were barely passable, a local news van idled by the curb, a young reporter scraping frost off her camera, eyes scanning for a headline. People in Oak Ridge had a sixth sense for gossip, and nothing spread faster than the story of 15 big city suits stranded overnight at the Lantern. Inside, the billionaires began to transform. Suits reappeared from garment bags, hair slicked back, voices sharper as calls finally connected. Someone arranged for town cars from the city. Another started dictating statements to his assistant, who'd arrived with the first trickle of cars, winded but efficient. The spell was well and truly broken. The men who'd been just cold, hungry, and human last night became executives again, guarded, brisk, impatient to reclaim their power. Maya felt it instantly. Her place in the story shifted from central to invisible, her name a footnote in their urgent recaps. She moved through the crush of bodies, collecting dirty plates and coffee cups, dodging news crews who wanted a hero shot. One reporter cornered her near the back booth, microphone shoved in her face. "How does it feel to save the day?" he asked, teeth too white, smile too wide. Maya hesitated, remembering the long night, the way the men had curled up in borrowed blankets, faces stripped bare by fear and fatigue. She wanted to say something real, something about kindness and community, but the words stuck. "Just did what anyone would do," she said quietly, turning away before he could ask again. Outside, a growing line of black SUVs, limos, and even a couple of helicopters chopped the sky, drawing a crowd. Locals gathered at the windows, snapping photos on their phones, whispering to each other. Maya's mother called the diner, voice crackling with pride and worry. "I saw you on TV. Are you all right? Don't let them push you around, mija." Maya promised she'd call back, heart pounding. All she wanted was quiet, but the world was suddenly loud. Tom, sensing the strain, pulled Maya aside. "You're the reason this place is still standing," he said. "Don't let them forget that." His words landed heavy, and Maya wished she could believe him. But all day, the gap grew wider. The billionaires tipped well, hundreds in cash left folded under coffee cups, a promise that didn't quite feel like thanks. Some of them stopped to shake her hand, flashing polite smiles before disappearing into their waiting cars. But Mason lingered by the counter, nursing a last cup of coffee, suit jacket slung over one arm. He watched the commotion outside, then glanced at Maya. "You know, Not many people could have handled last night. Or us. Maya shrugged, busying herself with the register. Storms come, storms go. He offered a small, genuine smile. If you ever want to try something new, business, hospitality, anything, here's my card. He slipped it onto the counter, then was gone, swept away in a tide of engines and noise. Within an hour, the diner was empty again, save for Maya and Tom. She watched as the last car vanished down Main Street, the memory of the night lingering like the smell of coffee and cold air. For a moment, she wondered if any of it would matter tomorrow, or if life would settle back into its old grooves. As she locked the door, she realized her own world had shifted, whether anyone else noticed or not. The sun dipped low, painting the snow gold. Maya pressed her palm to the cold glass, bracing herself for whatever came next. The world she knew had a way of remembering and forgetting on its own terms. That evening, Oak Ridge felt changed, as if the snowstorm had shaken loose secrets and ambitions that couldn't be buried again. Maya returned to her apartment above the pharmacy, arms aching, feet numb, head full of static from too many voices. She dropped her coat in the hallway and turned up the ancient radiator, hoping the heat would drown out the day. But rest wouldn't come. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from news stations, messages from strangers, emails promising exposure and opportunity. At first, she ignored them. All she wanted was quiet, a chance to eat cold leftovers and call her mom. But the outside world didn't care what Maya wanted. Word about the waitress who sheltered billionaires went viral. Her face was everywhere, tagged on social media, clipped in news broadcasts, pasted across a dozen headlines she never asked for. By morning, the phone at the lantern rang off the hook. Reporters wanted interviews. A breakfast show producer called, begging Tom to let Maya appear live via satellite. Food suppliers offered free coffee for a year. A startup wanted to sponsor the diner for the story. Maya's inbox filled with job offers, most of them vague, a few promising. There was even a handwritten letter slid under her door from a foundation in Manhattan. No details, just a gold seal and a business card tucked inside. But not all the attention was welcome. Someone posted her address online. Strangers came by, some with flowers, some just to gawk. Maya found herself avoiding her favorite grocery store, skipping her usual walk by the river, ducking down side streets when she saw unfamiliar faces. The privacy she'd clung to as armor began to feel paper-thin. Inside the diner, things were no easier. The crowd doubled, then tripled. Locals came to support her, but so did people from far away. Curious, excited, sometimes entitled. They wanted photos, autographs, stories. Tom was overwhelmed, snapping at customers, losing patience with reporters who blocked the door. Maya's shifts stretched longer and longer, each day blurring into the next. The tips were better, sure. Some nights, she pocketed more than she made in a week before the storm. But each dollar felt heavy, a reminder that people weren't just paying for coffee. They were paying for a piece of the story. More than once, Maya thought about quitting, about running, about hiding out, until the world found someone new to celebrate. But something stopped her. Maybe it was stubbornness, or pride, or just the knowledge that she had nowhere else to go. Maybe it was her mother's voice on the phone. Mija, don't let them decide who you are. You've always been strong. Don't forget it now. Maya tried to hold on to that, even as the world spun faster and louder around her. One afternoon, as she wiped down the counter for the 100th time, Mason's business card slipped from her apron pocket. She turned it over, running a thumb across the embossed lettering. For a moment, she let herself imagine it. A new city, a new job, a chance to start fresh. Somewhere she wasn't just a story in someone else's mouth. But the diner was still hers. The coffee was still hot. Tom still needed her. For now, Maya stayed put, facing the world one cup at a time, refusing to let a blizzard or a news cycle rewrite her whole life. Still, late at night, as snow fell softly past her window, Maya couldn't help but wonder what would happen if she took a chance on something bigger than survival, on something that might, for once, be just for her. Days blurred together, every one a little stranger than the last. Tour buses rolled through Oak Ridge, windows fogged with breath as passengers snapped photos of the lantern and the waitress inside. Maya worked harder than ever, muscles aching, eyes stinging from too little sleep. Her face was on mugs, shirts, even a cardboard cutout someone left by the door as a joke. If she laughed, it was only to weep from screaming. But the real change crept in quietly. The diner's old regulars stopped coming by as often, put off by the cameras and crowds. The local high school fundraiser lost its usual slot at the Lantern, replaced by out-of-town brunch reservations booked months in advance. The place that once felt like home now belonged to strangers. Maya felt the strain most when she saw Tom at the end of each shift, shoulders slumped, patience thinning. "It's good for business," he said, forcing a smile. But Maya could see the worry behind his eyes. The money was flowing, sure, but something quieter was slipping away. The town's gossip turned from pride to jealousy, a bitter edge creeping into small talk at the grocery store. People said Maya was lucky, that she'd caught her break. Some even joked she'd be moving to New York, now that she had friends in high places. One evening, as Maya closed up, Mason called. He'd been persistent. Emails, then texts, now a direct line. This time his tone was different, more urgent, more personal. "Listen, Maya, I'm serious about that job. It's not just a gesture. I want you on my team, managing operations for a new hospitality venture in the city. It comes with training, relocation, a real future. You'd be running things, not just cleaning up after them." The offer was dizzying. More money, more security, more room to grow than she'd ever imagined. But it also meant leaving everything behind. Maya walked home through quiet streets, her boots crunching fresh snow. Christmas lights twinkled in dark windows, but the town felt colder than ever. At home she made a list. Pros and cons, numbers and names. Her mom called asking if she'd thought about the future. "You can't pour from an empty cup, mija," she said softly. "You gave this town everything. Maybe it's time you gave something to yourself." But Maya hesitated. Tom had built the Lantern from nothing. Oak Ridge was still her mother's home. Her own childhood stitched into every booth and sticky table. Leaving felt like betrayal, even if staying meant losing herself piece by piece. The next morning, the local paper ran a headline. "Waitress in talks with billionaires. Is Oak Ridge losing its angel?" The article spun rumors into fact, turning Maya's choices into town gossip. She read the story twice, then threw the paper away, hands shaking. At the diner, customers asked about New York, about Mason, about her plans. Some congratulated her, others just stared, waiting to see if she'd outgrow the place that raised her. By closing time, Maya's head throbbed. She cleaned the last table and locked the door, watching her own reflection flicker in the glass. Fame had brought opportunity, but also loneliness. For the first time, she wasn't sure which would win out. In the dark, her phone buzzed again. Another offer, another lifeline. But the choice was hers, and for once that felt heavier than any storm. By the time the new week rolled around, the shine of Maya's sudden fame had started to wear thin. The cameras were still around, but now reporters fished for scandal, not inspiration. They wanted conflict. Was Maya leaving Oak Ridge behind? Was the diner sold? Who was getting rich off the story? Social media, once full of praise, now churned with anonymous complaints and wild rumors. Some posts called her a sellout. Others called her a fool for staying. Inside the lantern, the air felt tense. Tom was quieter, moving stiffly, snapping at customers who asked too many questions. Maya tried to hold everything together, smiling, serving, ignoring whispers, but cracks were showing. Tips dipped as locals started staying away, leaving behind the tourists and curiosity seekers. One night, after close, Maya found Tom sitting alone, staring at a pile of unpaid bills. "I thought all this would help," he said, voice low. "But the costs keep piling up. Repairs, supplies, taxes. Fame doesn't pay for everything." His hands trembled just slightly as he folded a bill in half. "You should take that job, Maya. Don't get stuck here because of me." The words hurt more than she expected. Tom had always treated her like family. The idea of leaving him behind, of letting the place sink under the weight of attention, made her chest ache. At home, Maya sat awake, the city lights painting shadows on her ceiling. She opened Mason's latest email, reading the offer again and again. High salary, apartment, benefits, respect. Everything she'd ever dreamed about on nights when the heat went out and the rent was late. But every promise came with a trade. Distance, guilt, the end of the life she knew. Her mom called, catching the worry in her voice. "You're not responsible for everyone," she said gently. "You can't save the world. Just don't lose yourself trying." But Maya couldn't let go. Not yet. The next morning, she woke to news that the landlord was raising the diner's rent. If they couldn't pay, the lantern would close by spring. Maya stared at the notice, anger and fear twisting in her stomach. The fame that was supposed to save them was pushing them out. Instead of panicking, Maya went to work. She called in favors, organized a community breakfast for the following weekend. No cameras, just neighbors, old regulars, anyone who remembered what the place was before the storm. She baked, she hustled, she sent handwritten notes to every table in town. The day of the breakfast, the old faces returned. Teachers, mechanics, kids who'd grown up on pancakes and hash browns. They came not for the spectacle, but for each other. For a morning, the diner felt whole again. People shared stories, traded recipes, passed a battered guitar from table to table. Maya felt something loosen inside her, a reminder that not all storms end in disaster. Mason called that night, asking for her decision. His voice was soft, not pushing. "Whatever you choose, I want you to know, you earned this, all of it. But don't forget what makes you special, Maya. It isn't just what you do, it's how you do it." She thanked him, heart heavy. For the first time, Maya realized the story was hers to write. Whatever happened next, whether she stayed or left, she wouldn't let anyone else decide who she was or what the lantern meant. Standing in the empty diner, Maya watched the snow drift past the windows. The world outside was still uncertain, but inside, for a moment, she felt something close to hope. The week after the community breakfast, Oak Ridge seemed to settle. The crowds thinned, the cameras left, and the world moved on to the next viral headline. For the first time in weeks, the lantern was quiet again, almost too quiet. Maya noticed the empty booths, the untouched coffee pots, the echo of her own footsteps on linoleum. Some days she welcomed the peace. Other days, the silence felt like failure. But something had shifted, deep beneath the routine. Locals started coming back, one by one, out of loyalty, maybe, or habit, or just because there was nowhere else in town quite like the diner. A teacher left a thank you note tucked under her plate. An old man paid with a handful of nickels, same as always. Maya caught Tom watching her sometimes. Pride and worry mingled in his eyes. Still, the problem lingered. The rent was due, bills stacked up, and the winter was far from over. The money from the boom had faded, swallowed up by repairs and supplies. Maya tried to stretch every dollar, but it was like pouring water through a sieve. One afternoon, as she swept the floor, Mason walked through the door. No cameras, no entourage, just himself and a plain winter coat. He sat at the counter, nodding at Tom, waiting until Maya poured him a cup of coffee before he spoke. "I'm not here to twist your arm," he said quietly, "but the offer still stands. We could use you in New York. I could use you." He looked tired, maybe even a little unsure. The confidence of their last call replaced with something gentler. "You don't owe Oak Ridge anything. Not forever." Maya didn't answer right away. She watched the snow swirl outside, the sky bruised and heavy. For months, she'd felt pulled in every direction, by the past, by her own ambitions, by the needs of people she cared about. The diner was more than a job. It was memory, comfort, proof that she belonged somewhere. But she was tired, bone tired, of holding everything together with hope and luck. After Mason left, Tom found her sitting alone, head in her hands. "You thinking about leaving?" he asked, no judgment in his voice. "I don't know," Maya admitted. "Feels like staying is letting myself shrink. But leaving feels like quitting on everyone who believed in me." Tom nodded, wiping his hands on his apron. "Places change. People move on. Doesn't mean you failed them. You gave this town more than most. Don't stay out of guilt. Stay if it's what you want." That night, Maya walked the dark streets, her breath fogging in the cold. She passed the old school, the empty lot where kids used to build snow forts, the church where her mother still sang in the choir. She ended up back at the lantern, watching the sign flicker in the window. She took out Mason's card, turning it over in her palm, thinking about all the doors that could open and all the ones that might close. For the first time, she let herself imagine a future that wasn't just about survival or sacrifice or anyone else's dreams. Maybe it was time to trust her own. In the morning, Maya called Mason. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "I'll take the job, but I want to do it my way. I want time to train someone here, to make sure Tom and the diner will be okay. And I want to come back when I can." Mason agreed, relief in his laugh. "Deal, Maya. Whatever you need." As she hung up, Maya felt the weight lift, just a little. She wasn't running away. She was choosing a future, a legacy, and finally, herself. Spring crept into Oak Ridge slowly, snow melting from the eaves and crocuses pushing up through mud by the roadside. The lantern's old sign flickered steady blue and red as the days grew longer. By then, Maya's news had made its rounds, first in whispers, then in the local paper, finally face to face with everyone who cared enough to ask. She was leaving, but not without making sure what she loved would stay standing. Her last few weeks in Oak Ridge were a blur of tasks and goodbyes. She trained a new hire, a single mom named Jenna, who reminded her of herself, a little too stubborn, a little too tired, but sharp and quick with a smile. Maya walked Jenna through every detail: how to fix the coffee grinder when it jammed, who preferred their eggs runny, where Tom kept the spare key taped under the cash register. With each lesson, Maya felt something settle, a sense of handing off, not abandoning. The final community breakfast arrived with the first warm breeze. Neighbors packed the diner, filling every booth, leaving no plate untouched. There was laughter, a little music, and more than a few tears. Tom gave a speech about change and second chances. Even some of the regulars who'd drifted away came back, just for the day, as if the storm had never happened. Maya's mom sat by the window, proud and teary-eyed, squeezing Maya's hand every time someone wished her luck. Mason came up from the city to say goodbye, promising that the offer was real and that he'd hold her to her request. Time to come back when you need it. After the crowd thinned, Maya took one last walk through the diner, past the jukebox, the chipped mugs, the sunlit booths where she'd learned who she was. She paused at the window, watching the street outside return to its quiet routine. It wasn't fame or fortune that changed her life. It was the storm, the long night when strangers became neighbors, and the days that followed when she learned what it meant to be needed and to be free. On her last evening, Maya locked up for the final time, the keys heavy in her palm. Tom hugged her tight. "You fixed more than coffee here, kid. Don't forget that." She drove away as the sun dipped below the hills, her future unwritten, but her heart steady. The city waited. A new life, new challenges. A place where she could grow and build, and maybe find joy beyond survival. But she carried Oak Ridge with her. The grit, the kindness, the proof that repair was always possible if you let others in. Months later, in the rhythm of her new job, Maya would sometimes pause, hearing the echo of a bell above a diner door or the laugh of a regular in a crowded restaurant. Each time she remembered what she'd learned in the snowstorm. That love, real love, was built not just on grand gestures, but on quiet acts of care, forgiveness, and the courage to choose again, even when it hurts. With me, this was never just a story about a waitress or a billionaire or a town changed by a blizzard. It's proof that no one's beyond repair, that sometimes all you need is a little shelter and the bravery to walk forward even after the storm. If you found something real in this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Where are you watching from? Comment your city below. I'd love to hear your story too.